Goals for 2025, planning your show's growth. It is that time of year again when we look back on what we've accomplished and dream about what's next. But dreams, well, they don't get us there on their own. Planning does. Whether you're looking to grow your audience or launch new revenue streams or simply elevate the quality of your show, today we're tackling the strategies you need to prepare your podcast for growth in the coming year. So let's make 2025 your breakthrough year. Welcome to another episode of Legit Podcast Pro, the show where we help you navigate the legal and business side of podcasting so you can focus on what you do best, creating amazing content. I'm Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, and today we're talking about how to set yourself up for podcast growth in the new year. Now, growth doesn't just happen. It is the result of intentional planning and smart decision making and, a little bit of elbow grease. So grab a pen or open up your notes app or whatever it is, because by the end of this episode, you will have a little bit of a roadmap to take your podcast and your everything else to the next level. So first off, I just want to give you the tip. So one, reflect on where you've been. Before we can plan where we're going, we need to take stock of where we've been. That's it. The first step in planning for growth is reflection. And no, this isn't just about staring wistfully into the distance. It's about taking a good, hard look at the numbers, the content, and the lessons we've learned over the past year. So start with your analytics. And I am by no means a numbers person. I don't love looking at stats and figures and the math part of things and whatever, but you got to look at your numbers month by month. Do you see any spikes or slumps? If you can, do what you can to identify your top performing episodes. What is it that made them stand out? Was it the topic or the guest or maybe what you did to promote the show? And then look at your listener engagement. Are people sticking around for the full episode or are they dropping off, sort of halfway through? Understanding these patterns will give you valuable insight into what's resonating with your audience and where you might be falling short. But don't just stop at the data. Think about the qualitative stuff too. What feedback are you getting from your listeners? Maybe you've had emails or reviews or comments on social media. What are the people loving about your show? What are they asking for more of? Reflecting on both your wins and the challenges you've experienced will help you build a clearer picture of where you stand and where you want to go. The point is, as we move into 2025, you want to do more of what's working and less of what isn't, right? So make yourself lists of both categories and refer to it as you move into the planning phase. And that's what's next, setting clear goals for growth. And I talk about smartest goals, you'll hear. Once you've reflected on this year, I should say, it's time to get specific about what you want to achieve in the coming year. Growth can mean different things to different podcasters, so start by defining what it means to you. Are you aiming for more downloads, more listener engagement? Maybe it's about generating more revenue, expanding your reach into new markets, or just getting a better message out or achieving greater impact. Now, I'm sure you've heard that when it comes to setting goals, the thinking is they need to be SMART goals. That is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So instead of saying, I want more listeners, you say something like, I want to increase my monthly downloads by 25% by the end of the second quarter. That way you have a clear target to aim for, and you can track progress along the way. It's specific and measurable, achievable, it's relevant, and it's time-bound. That's great. But I like to add to that and make sure that my goals are the smartest goals. That means that not only are they specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, but also that they are emotionally compelling. There's something about the goal that will continually inspire you to the action you need to take to make the goal your reality. So you got to really connect with how does it make you feel when you think about achieving this goal? What's it going to be like? What does it make possible for you? And really get in touch with the feeling, the emotion of what that experience will be like for you. Then the second S in Smartest stands for systems driven. That means that you have a method or a system that you'll use to achieve the goal. Like A simple example, if you want to go to the gym more often, you lay out your clothes at night so you automatically put them on first thing in the morning and head out to the gym with no hemming and hawing about whether you're going. It's what's happening, and then it just does. And finally, that last T in smartest, that stands for trigger initiated. This means knowing and articulating what trigger will drive you to take the actions to move closer to your goal. Really, it's about turning the goal pursuit into habit. What triggers you to brush your teeth in the morning, for example? Waking up, right? Or in the evening, getting ready for bed. When you've got the triggers figured out, you can quickly turn the goal from an idea about something into an action that you take consistently. That's a habit because the trigger reminds you, and eventually it becomes almost automatic. That's what you want to do. Now, another key thing to think about, again, is what success really looks like for you. Remember, it's not just about numbers. Could also mean creating more meaningful connection with your audience, or launching something new, or streamlining your workflow so you can podcast with less stress. Whatever your goals are, write them down. There's power in getting your vision down on paper. And more importantly, make a note in your scheduling or reminder system or something that you're going to review that every couple of weeks or every month, something like that. Certainly at least once a quarter. Now, segment 3 is develop your strategy. Now that you know what you're aiming for, it's time to figure out how exactly you're going to get there. So let's start with your content. Think about how can you evolve or expand what you're already doing and do more of the stuff that really works. Maybe you want to introduce some new segments or experiment with a different format. That's great. Or perhaps it's just time to level up your guest game by reaching out to higher profile interviewees or collaborating with other podcasters in your niche. And consider creating your content calendar for, if not the entire year, at least the first calendar quarter. Do it now. Just make a list of topics or focused areas that you're going to cover now and then plug them into the calendar. So you never have to stop and wonder or think about, well, what am I going to talk about this week? And don't forget to consider any holidays or special events that you want to tie your content into. I mean, it's no mistake that I am doing this episode now in the second week of December as we approach the end of the year when it's time to be thinking about new goals. I had a calendar out and I was looking, okay, new year, let's figure out what we're going to do. And if you're coming up on St. Patty's Day and your show has some connection or relevance, or even if it doesn't, try to find one and then make that part of your scheduling process. And then once you've gotten the subjects plugged in, you can plan and do the pre-work and all that way ahead of time. And also, it's a good idea to put a reminder in your calendar, again, a trigger, to do this kind of content calendar exercise again before the quarter is over. So you never catch yourself coming up blank, because that's what leads to inconsistency. That's what leads to maybe skipping a week here and there, those kinds of things. Another reason to get your calendar out now is if you have trips planned or conferences you're going to be attending or days that you know you're not going to be around on the day you normally release your podcast episode, it lets you plan ahead so you make sure you fill in with a pre-recorded episode or you republish an older episode, something like that. And let's talk about audience engagement as well. Growing your audience is a great goal, and it doesn't just mean bringing in new audience members, new listeners. It also means keeping the ones that you have happy and engaged. So how can you build a stronger connection with your listeners? Well, what about hosting a live Q&A session from time to time, or creating some interactive polls, or launch a private community on platforms like Discord or Facebook? Or maybe you could find a discount program that you could tie in with, and just ask a retailer or a brand if they could do a special promotion for you. And that brings us to promotion itself. If you're like many podcasters, you might feel like marketing is really the hardest part of it all, but it's also one of the most important. So take a good look at your current promotional efforts. Have you been consistent with it on social media? Is your podcast website optimized for discoverability? Have you done the SEO stuff that goes there? Have you explored new opportunities like guest appearances on other shows or running targeted ads to attract more audience? Promotion doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's all about finding the strategies that work best for you. And again, double down on the things that have worked for you this last year, and then experiment here and there with new things. And if they work, of course, keep going. but don't be too afraid to not do something if it doesn't seem to work. You got to give it a reasonable chance at working, a reasonable amount of time, but then, focus on the things that you know work and do more of those. All right. Next up, investing in yourself, in your podcast, and in your growth. To grow your show, you got to invest. And that doesn't always mean spending a lot of money. Sometimes it's just about being strategic. For example, is your equipment holding you back? Well, upgrading to a better microphone or investing in soundproofing could dramatically improve the audio quality for your show. Or maybe you need to invest more of your time. You're feeling overwhelmed by editing, social media, other tasks. It might be time to invest in outsourcing some of that. Hiring a freelance editor or a virtual assistant, a VA, could really free you up to focus on creating great content. It's what I do with my thumbnails. I have my virtual assistant working from the content calendar that I've created months and months in advance. She's able to work ahead and develop the thumbnails and develop the show art for each episode. And sometimes she even helps with developing the keyword research and things like that. And that makes it easy for me to just focus on making the good content. At least I hope you think it's good content. And let's not forget about professional development. Could you benefit from taking a course, maybe on marketing or advertising, or learning better storytelling or journalism skills? Learning new skills is an investment that will pay dividends in the long run. So invest in yourself. And finally, let's talk about the legal and business side of growing. Because the bigger your podcast gets, the more important it is to have your ducks in a row. So first, review your contracts and agreements. Are your sponsorship deals clearly defined? If you're working with collaborators, do you have proper agreements in place to outline everyone's roles and responsibilities, those podcast prenups? And think about your intellectual property. Have you registered a trademark for your podcast name and logo? Do you own the rights in your show's content outright? Well, protecting your intellectual property is crucial, especially as your brand starts to grow. And don't forget about things like your business structure. If your podcast is starting to generate income, it's probably time to formalize it as a business entity like an LLC. It not only protects your personal assets, but also can make things a lot easier for you come tax time. Getting this stuff handled, the legal and business affairs side of your podcast, really is worth the investment, because knowing that you're protected against all of the various kinds of risks and liabilities that can come your way will free you from worry. It creates a kind of confidence so you can take big, bold action that will propel things forward toward impact, influence, growth, and profit. And that's where Easy Legal for Podcasters comes in. I want you to check out this comprehensive legal and business affairs program. It's loaded with legal templates and forms and how-to guides and instruction, so you can use those things to get the legal stuff handled quickly, easily, and affordably, and without having to hire lawyers. So planning for podcast growth isn't just about dreaming big. It's about setting goals, taking action, and making sure that your foundation is strong enough to support your success. So as we head into the new year, please do take the time to reflect and strategize and invest in your podcast, and also reflect on the gratitude, things that you are grateful for in the year that has passed and that you are grateful for increasing in the new year. It will serve you very, very well. So thank you for joining me on this episode of Legit Podcast Pro. And if you're ready to take those important steps to protect and grow your podcast, head on over to easylegalforpodcasters.com. I'm Gordon Firemark, and I will see you next time on Legit Podcast Pro. Until then, here's to a very joyous holiday season and a successful and prosperous 2025.